with long-term meditators, there's countless studies out there. And one of them proves that when we meditate consistently, that 20 minutes of meditation accesses about 8 hours of deep sleep because of the brain waves that you get into when you're in deep meditation. It's similar to that REM sleep, which is where you're really getting into that delta state where you can actually repair. I mean, meditation literally repairs our DNA. It helps with high blood pressure. The physiological benefits are numerous and it's out there. Just look it up.
Do you want to wake up feeling like you're stepping into who you're meant to be, into the best possible version of you? What if I told you that the key to your best life, health, and happiness are all around you? You just have to find what works for you. I'm Hope Pedraza, and I believe that there isn't just one way to live a healthy and meaningful life, and that all you need is a little inspiration to make changes that last from the inside out. Each week, I'll be sharing tangible tips and inspirational interviews to help you on your journey. These are the steps to take to improve your life and live with purpose. This is Hopeful and Wholesome. Hey y'all, welcome back to the show. Today I have on the show Sara Webb. Sara is an author, an inspirational speaker, a spiritual activist, and she's dedicated to living intentionally. Her mission of healing the world one person at a time. She really inspires people to access the power within themselves by teaching pocket-sized techniques to process stress, improve daily happiness, and bring the best versions of themselves to their own lives. She is all about bringing the power of meditation to the world. And she has really an incredible story in dealing with and experiencing some of the most intense stress I think any woman, especially woman, could deal with. And she's going to talk about this in the episode. She used meditation to be able to deal with the emotions of that trauma and to really come to realization of who she really was. And coming out as a gay woman in her 40s was something that she had not been able to process before really being able to put into practice these meditative practices. So we are talking all about the power of meditation. And I know we've talked about meditation before on the show, but this is a whole kind of different approach to it. She really looks at the science behind it, the neuroscience behind it. We talk about brain waves and some really geeky science stuff. And then really the different types of meditation, and specifically the type she does, which we have not talked about on the show, how that really worked for her, and then what it's like to find the type of meditation that works for you, and really what that means for you just in your journey in life, in dealing with your own emotions and your own traumas, and just growing and evolving as a human. So I really loved this episode with Sara. She's such a powerhouse of inspirational knowledge, and I know you're just going to fall in love with her. So let's jump in. All right, y'all, let's get going, y'all. I'm here today with Sara, and we are talking all things self-care, meditation, and I mean, Sara, as a spiritual activist, has a lot to teach us today. So thanks so much for joining me today, Sara.
Thank you so much, Hope. Thank you for this opportunity.
Yes, of course. So I typically save like the kind of the backstory for like later on in the conversation. But I feel like your backstory kind of leads us to talking about all the things we're going to talk about today with meditation and all of that. So can you just kind of give the audience just a look inside how you got to where you are, and then really kind of what your story is and what you've been through?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we grow through what we go through, right?
That's right.
I came to meditation really for simple reasons. I had stress. I think we all experience a lot of stress, and I can get into the physiology and biology and lots of boring, geeky science stuff because I'm just a big questioner. I have to know why things work.
I like the geeky stuff.
Well, we can get really nerdy up in here with all of that. So physiologically, when we experience stress, our bodies aren't designed to experience the kind of stress that we tolerate poorly or not so well on a daily basis. If you go back to just Homo sapien, back when we were hunter-gatherers and when we didn't have interstates and cell phones and such a go, go, go life, the body produces cortisol and adrenaline when we're under stress. And a lot of people have heard about the fight or flight. Well, that's just our sympathetic nervous system reacting to a stressor. We go into fight or flee. So we would fight someone like an invading tribesperson, or perhaps, somebody that we're having a quarrel with. And then we would flee if it's maybe a saber-toothed tiger or a jaguar or something with really big claws that we don't think that we're going to win. But our bodies would very quickly return back to homeostasis, back to that ability to rest and digest, or the parasympathetic nervous system. But in today's society, we have stressors coming at us all the time. Expectations from outside sources or inside sources, which are usually rooted in outside expectations, and traffic and bosses, whether you're your own boss or you actually have one. So I was just a little stressed out high school teacher and working in difficult schools. And I just noticed that I had a lot of stress. I think the first kind of meditation that I ever did was moving meditation with yoga. I started practicing yoga over 20 years ago. I'm now a certified yoga teacher, but I started doing meditation, at yoga studios, maybe at the end of yoga class, or doing workshops. One time I did a Deepak Chopra 8-day experience online. I started going to Buddhist temples, Tibetan workshops, just trying to find that kind of meditation that worked for me. And nothing really stuck. I never really wanted to sit down and do it. I'd make an excuse and not feel confident about it. And it wasn't until I discovered TM, or transcendental meditation, 6 years ago, that I really found the kind that worked for me. That involves a price and a teacher, and I don't think that everyone needs to do that. Back then, I didn't know about the apps that they have today, like Insight Timer and Headspace. I didn't know that you could have gone on YouTube and there's all kinds of free guided meditations. I mean, there's stuff on there with breath work, Wim Hof, you name it. There's so much out there, thousands and thousands of different kinds. At the time, I was just looking for stress relief. So I found a TM teacher in my area and learned this mantra-based meditation, 20 minutes twice a day. You do it in the morning when you first wake up, and then some other time during the day. And it's a personal mantra. It's a thought word sound that doesn't mean anything in any language. And you just simply repeat it in your mind. And the reason why I really liked TM when I heard about it on a podcast, actually, is because it's so different from mindfulness. When we practice mindfulness, usually we're focusing on something and trying to push the thoughts away, which if you get into with the brain science, brain waves, if you're actively trying to do something, usually you can't get into those lower frequency brain waves, which is where meditation lies. And with TM, you can continue to think. It's okay to have thoughts. So I really found it to be very effortless, and I wanted to meditate. I wanted to sit down and do my 20 minutes twice a day. And it's only through my regular practice that I began to gain more clarity and more of what we call in yoga, being the witness or witnessing. So it's kind of like, instead of being in the movie, you're watching the movie. And even when we watch a movie, we experience emotions and we get involved with these characters, but we can go back to our regular lives very easily without usually like taking a lot of it with us. And when I started meditating consistently and not just sporadically, I started to notice things that I was doing, habits that I was clinging to. And when my daughter was about 18 months old, I had a moment where she picked up a little toy glass, kind of looked like a Mardi Gras cup. And I'm originally from New Orleans.
I'm from Louisiana.
Like one of those little, oh, fantastic. I'm from outside of New Orleans, a little town called Slidell.
Oh, I know exactly where that is.
Well, that's awesome. What a connection.
I know, right?
So she picked up this little Mardi Gras chalice cup and she took a sip and she said, "This is my wine." And it just made me think, as I sat down for meditation later that day, what am I teaching my daughter? Because that was my drink of choice, was wine. And so I started trying to change my relationship with alcohol. Of course, I was sober for the first time when I had my daughter. And I noticed when I first got pregnant that at the end of the day, around 4 o'clock for teachers, not 5 o'clock, because we start really early, I would have an automatic thought about having a glass of wine. And it made me realize, gosh, I'm doing this every day. It's kind of weird that I wouldn't have noticed that because I'm a pretty intelligent individual, but it called to my attention the habits that I had perhaps been leaning on even more since I had my daughter. I was really struggling a lot in my marriage to my now ex-husband, and I was numbing out with more and more wine. Of course, after my daughter went to bed, most of the time, unless it was a mom's happy hour, we know that it's so socially acceptable to be a mom and go on play dates and bring a bottle of champagne. And so when I stopped drinking, I had to sit with some of the emotions and things that I had been repressing. And at the time, it had been 10 or so years since I had been raped pretty brutally. But my subconscious mind did a beautiful job of repressing those emotions and memories. And when I finally started really digging in and thinking about the fact that this is something that happened to me and trying to deal with it in therapy, hypnotherapy, it was the meditation that really allowed me to see it for what it was. And as a result of that, I was able to realize that I don't have to have sex with men anymore. It was difficult for me to have sex with men without alcohol. And I lived as a gay woman in college and a little bit after college, and made a choice to stop dating women because I thought, growing up in Southern Louisiana, and at the time I was in Texas after college, I just knew that my parents, strict Southern Baptist roots, they wouldn't accept me as a gay woman. I was in church on Sunday morning, Sunday night. I was there for Monday night, red beans and rice. I was there Wednesday night for the church group. And I went to school there Monday through Friday. So I knew that homosexuality was wrong and a sin. And I knew that it was not something that would be accepted.
Yeah.
So I tried to marry a man and have a baby the right way, do things the traditional way. And, you just get to a point in your life where you don't have to live up to those expectations that we referred to earlier on in the conversation. And when we can begin to live life on our own terms and do things authentically because they are part of us. Yep. And so this cascade of difficult, yet really inherently beautiful events all transpired as a result of my regular meditation practice. And I don't think that you have to do TM, but meditation is really magic. And if you want to get a little bit into the physiology and the biology behind it, I'll give you just a few statistics. All around us at every single moment, there are billions of bits of data with a B. The human brain is a supercomputer. It can process around 11 million bits per second, which sounds like a lot. But we're only conscious of between 40 and 50 of those 11 million bits per second, not 40 or 50,000. So I did the math. On average, we're conscious of 0.04% of everything that's actually being processed by our brain and our bodies. 99.96% of everything that's coming into our bodies and brains is being processed by our subconscious. And this is why hairs stand up on the back of our neck at times, or why we just know things, because our subconscious brain is processing it and it can clue us in. We just feel something in our bones, feel something in our gut. There's a reason why we have, terms like that. So I'll give you one more bit of data as to why meditation works and then put them together. In our bodies, we have 11 million sensory receptors. 10 million out of the 11 million of our sensory receptors are dedicated to sight. Even though we have 5 senses, 10 million of the 11 million are dedicated to sight. So if you want to access that 99.96% of information that's already in there, you just shut off 10 million of your 11 million sensory receptors and go inside.
Oh my gosh.
Our eyes are constantly scanning, going back to we're looking for stressors, we're looking for safety.
Yep.
And if we can just feel safe, get quiet, get inside, then we can access the information that's already available to us. And I believe strongly that when we access deep meditative states, we're tapping into the unified field, or what quantum physics postulates as a place of all possibility, all creativity. I mean, my book of poetry was largely written after I meditated. I had an experience a few months ago when I was searching for publishers. I already had the book finished, and I was on a plane to Sedona with my now wife, and I had 6 poems. I wasn't even trying. they were just spewing. And I had to pull out my book and I'm writing furiously. And so I really think that meditation is magic, and it's free and it's available to everyone at all times.
That's so true. What a story. What a journey through it. Well, and to be able to pinpoint like the catalyst for all of that, I think is like, I mean, that's the most powerful piece. And I like that when you started out your story, I think such a huge piece of this that you pointed out at the beginning is you became more aware of patterns. Like that was kind of the first like realizations, like you were all of a sudden totally aware. And I think I talk about this all the time, and everybody listening gets sick of me talking about it because I probably mention this in every episode, but I feel like self-awareness is like the most undervalued like trait. It's just the most undervalued. It just really is people understand the power of just that self-awareness piece, and that you were able to use meditation to, like you're saying, like tune into that subconscious to be able to it's all about the awareness. And you become aware of patterns you've had, and you're aware of how stressed you were. And then you're aware of, I'm following all these things that need to be deconditioned. I'm living by all these conditioned rules and societal rules and all that. Like, it's just the awareness piece is huge.
That is so eloquently put, Hope. And I completely agree. I do quotes on my Instagram, and I'm going to quote you. Self-awareness is the most undervalued trait, because I completely agree with you. That's always the first step. I mean, and that's what I tell my clients all the time, is that meditation creates awareness, not only self-awareness, but just awareness of, and it's so counterintuitive that by shutting off our sensory receptors and our ability to interact with the world, but it's just, you got to slow down to speed up.
Yep.
I mean, that's a law of physics. Mm-hmm. Like an electric car. When you press the brake, it recharges. Mm. And when our phone's not working or our computer, what do? We restart it, we turn it off, we reset it. And that's exactly what meditation is. It's pressing the brake, it's resetting, restarting, and it doesn't happen. You know, we're usually like so frustrated. We want this thing to restart, but we've left it on for months or, a few weeks, and are expecting it to do things. And our bodies work the exact same way. And with long-term meditators, there's countless studies out there. And one of them proves that when we meditate consistently, that 20 minutes of meditation accesses about 8 hours of deep sleep, because of the brain waves that you get into when you're in deep meditation. It's similar to that REM sleep, which is where you're really getting into that delta state where you can actually repair. I mean, meditation literally repairs our DNA. Yep. It helps with high blood pressure. The physiological benefits are numerous, and it's out there. Just look it up.
Yep. Well, and like you said, I mean, it's free. Like, you don't have to go anywhere to do it. You don't have to have any special training to do it yourself. Like, it's like the easiest thing. And it's one of the biggest things that with my nutrition clients that I talk about, because I'm all about, like, we do a lot of like nervous system work kind of as a part of like their healing from chronic issues. And the meditation piece is huge. And I love that we've never talked about this before on the show, but I love that transcendental meditation is the one that you chose as like, this is my thing, like, this is my type. And I try to encourage, I'm not trained in meditation, like as a meditation teacher, but I try to encourage them to kind of like, find the one that works for you. So I know you touched on a little bit. Can you talk a little more deeply about exactly what transcendental meditation is? And for people maybe who haven't tried it, that could be the thing that clicks for them too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it is just about establishing that habit, because habits rule most of our lives. And I, again, like just all those different kinds that I was trying, I just didn't want to establish the habit. Mm-hmm. I listened to a podcast 6 years ago when I was pregnant, and they had it was an hour-long podcast, and it was a TM expert and a mindfulness expert. And they would just ask the same question to both of the guests. And at the end, they said, which one is better, TM or mindfulness? And both of them said, find what works for you. If you've been trying a certain kind and it hasn't been working, try the other one. Yeah. And they said, go to tm.org and you can find a teacher in your area. And I did it at the gas station. Like, I pulled over and I found a teacher, called him immediately. And that was the end of it. I went to, like, they have like a free intro session, and they just explain what TM is in relation to other kinds of meditation. And basically described it by what TM is not. Mm-hmm. It's not focusing on a flame. It's not focusing on your breath, but it is mantra based. And that mantra is a very personal thing that's assigned to you by the teacher that you never speak out loud. You never say it again. It just is something that you very easily and effortlessly repeat to yourself in your head. And the beautiful thing is you can continue to think. And so it kind of, have you ever had like a song stuck in your head? You can still think when you have a song stuck in your head. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like the mantra inhabits that space where you have something that's kind of repeating and it becomes its own thing. It's a thought, word, sound. It means nothing in any language. And it just repeats slowly. And then you're able to think. And somehow, I don't really know how it happens, but I call it losing time. Somehow all of a sudden you're like, oh, you come back. Yeah. Wake up almost and you're like, oh, I feel so much better. And how much time has gone by? Oh my gosh, it's been 15 minutes and you just wrap it up. So yeah, I mean, TM is just, you can go to tm.org. I'm not being paid for it. Just a believer. And I've actually learned some of the advanced, because there are 4 advanced techniques as well. I've learned some of those. There's like a nighttime technique. And it did such amazing things for my life. I was pregnant at the time that I learned, and my ex-husband noticed within a few weeks. He said, wow, you're different. You're more even keel. I mean, you've got all those hormones raging. You're like, it's a lot. So yeah, it changed my life. And a lot of people in my life have learned because they have seen the change in me.
Yeah. That's amazing. And it's such a testament to just find what works for you. And I find that a lot of time, I feel like there's going to be somebody listening who grabs onto this and goes with it, because I feel like a lot of times it's kind of like you're saying, like, I can't get excited about sitting still, or I just can't get into the routine of doing, this kind of meditation, or doing meditation this way. So just trying this new way, I think I love that. I love that there's so many, variations of it that you really can find what works for you and find what sticks.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people are kind of afraid of meditation or leery, or they feel like they're not doing it right. Or they feel like they're supposed to have this amazing Zen experience all of a sudden. But we practice meditation. We practice law. We practice medicine. It's not yoga perfection. It's not meditation perfection. It's just something we continue to come back to. And I have sometimes where I never reach that transcendental, that trance state for weeks on end. And then I have other times where all of a sudden the 20 minutes is over and it's just establishing that habit, which they say it takes 21 days. But actually, if you read other books like Atomic Habits by James Clear, really to solidify it, it takes about 90 days. Yeah. Like 84 to 85 days in the brain, but about 90 days of doing it every day. And so if 20 minutes sounds daunting, try 3 and just make a habit of it. It's a really great time to capture the hypnagogic and hypnopompic states of the brain. And that's right after we wake up and right before we go to sleep, because that trap door, so to speak, between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind is thinner. And so if you're wanting to manifest or just access deeper states, those are really great times. I have a second pillow that I put behind me. I sit up against my headboard in the morning before I look at my phone, before I get engrossed with what Dr. Joe Dispenza calls the personality that you're perpetrating. Just get quiet with what's actually inside before we've taken on. It's like my biological 5-year-old daughter doesn't see all these labels that everyone else sees and all these imposed beliefs about how successful a person is, because now adults, they say that within, I think, 4 seconds, you have 8 assumptions about a person.
Oh, I believe it. Totally. Yeah, I believe it. I believe it 100%. And I like that I think the important distinction too, is that it's not yoga or meditation perfection. That's a practice. I think that was something when I started meditating that I struggle with, because as a perfectionist, I would sit there and I would get so mad at myself. So I'm like, just, stop thinking. I would get so mad. And it's like, well, you're defeating the purpose But it is, you have to understand, like you're saying, you're not going to hit that like transcendental moment every time you sit down. It's a practice. And sometimes it clicks and sometimes it doesn't, but you continue to practice. You still continue to reap the benefits of it. It's just, you just continue to work and practice and try to master. It's like, I'm a huge fan of Dr. Joe Dispenza, so I'm so glad you mentioned that. But it's like mastering yourself, right? It's like overcoming yourself. And he talks about that a lot, but that's what it is. Yep. It's just a practice. And then you're telling your body, like, you are not in charge. Like, you go and you just have to keep practicing. And I love that you said that it's not about, doing it perfect.
Yeah. And that awareness, I think that a lot of what meditation allows us access to is awareness of what we are saying to ourselves.
Totally.
That negative self-talk, that self-deprecating, that God, you're so whatever, fill in the adjective, which is not helpful, right? Because we believe the things that we say to ourselves. So it's just creating that space so that when our mind strays, I mean, even if you're doing mindfulness meditation where, you're bringing the mind back, it's allowing yourself to realize, okay, I don't need to chastise myself every time I bring my mind back. And that will translate out into your own life by realizing that you don't have to chastise. I mean, it's like life is just one big lesson. And each moment we've never done it before. And so when we can start to categorize obstacles as opportunities and realize that literally even 1 second later, that chance is gone and there's absolutely no point in beating ourselves up. That's like one of the postulates of yoga is ahimsa, non-violence, which is violence against ourselves.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a huge one. That was my biggest thing. And it is that awareness piece. I feel like I've been having this realization here recently too, where you don't realize, because you're talking about how much is in your subconscious, you don't realize how many crappy things you say about yourself or think about yourself, right? Until you bring that awareness piece into it. And I think that I've been realizing that more and more. I was doing this program with this spiritual coach, and it was like, you had to like basically write a love letter to yourself, like kind of like thanking yourself for the journey and acknowledging like, what the journey has done for you and your growth and evolution and all that. And that was like such a huge realization that like, because I think, even just 3 years ago, me would have been like, this is dumb. Like, I'm not going to do this. And I would have resisted thinking like, well, I don't have anything to thank myself for, and think of all the negative things, or I'm not where I feel like I should be. And I'm not as far along in my business, all those things. But as you continue, like, especially meditation has been transformational for me as well. I did not have the same traumas to overcome as you, but transformational nonetheless. I think when you have that, you bring in that awareness piece like you're talking about, and you bring in that awareness to the thoughts you've been telling yourself for, God knows how long, that you can bring those to the surface and really uncover those and like start to heal from those things you've been telling yourself. I think that is such a huge piece of it too, of understanding how you've been treating yourself and what the alternative is,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes we can be our own worst enemy, and we don't have to have experienced trauma with a capital T or trauma it can be trauma with a lowercase t. We have things that occur as children before we're able to rationalize where it may make us feel unimportant. I mean, a lot of the limiting beliefs, false beliefs, call it what you like, have to do with us thinking, feeling that we're not enough. That's a lot of times the story that we as humans tell ourselves. I'm not rich enough. I'm not successful enough. I'm not far along enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not skinny enough. I'm not loud enough. I'm not assertive enough. I'm not quiet enough. Whatever it is, we will tell ourselves stories about basically not being enough. And that has to do with our worthiness. So if we can use meditation, because there's a lot of meditations out there where you can actually use these altered states of consciousness, that's what meditation is, in order to implant positive affirmations, in order to manifest, because it's those lower brainwave states that are actually where we can get into the subconscious and change our lives from the inside out.
Yeah. I love that. And I love the science behind all of that. I'm so glad you touched on that, because being a Dr. Joe Dispenza fan, I love all the science and the neuroscience and the brain waves and all of that. So I'm so glad you brought that in, and such a good tip about doing it, in the morning or in the evening when you're kind of in that. So I love that. So speaking of tips, not that you haven't already given a bunch of great information, but for everybody listening who is either they're, trying to get a consistent meditation practice, they're thinking about it, they feel like they want to do it, what would be some of just a few of your biggest tips on getting started and how to really make this consistent and to be able to have these this transformational experience and feel the benefits of meditation?
I think that the first thing is to let go of expectation. I think that a lot of people have a lot of preconceived ideas about what meditation should be.
Yep.
It's something that I'm working on because I have a coach myself. Coaches always have coaches, is not shoulding on myself. You never should on yourself.
Yep.
It's always good because shoulds are expectations from other people. And I think that, we might look at someone who's meditating or this image of what a meditating person might look like and have a presupposition about what kind of experience that might be. I've gone through really uncomfortable moments. Sometimes when something's working itself out of my body, I want to get up.
Yep.
And I want to stop.
Yep.
But it's about sitting with it, noticing it. And a lot of that can be done with just some body awareness. And what's so great about TM is that you do have somebody to reach out to via email. They also have in Tampa Bay here, they have meetings that you can go to
cool.
a couple times a month, ask questions hey, this thing came up. Because there's so much in our culture about meditation that it's almost like TM they're having to unteach you. You're having to unlearn some of these preconceived notions about what meditation is supposed to be like.
Yes.
And then number two, so let go of expectation, number one. And number two is just start. And number three is keep trying to find the one that works for you, because there's so many resources out there.
Yep.
There's in-person opportunities, especially today. I was in Target the other day, and I don't know if it's just my area, but every single mug had to do with being calm and just taking a moment. And this is so in our culture that we need to take time for ourselves and talk about, that self-care. And I think, going back to your lead in about self-care, I think that self-care is incorrectly labeled as something that, especially as women, is associated with beauty.
Yep.
Self-care is getting a massage or getting our nails done, or our hair done, getting pampered.
Yep.
And self-care can be sitting in your car before you go in to deal with the dog or the cat or the spouse or the kids. Maybe it's sitting in your car before you leave work. And obviously, I don't advocate driving while you're meditating, but just taking a few minutes. I actually have a setting on my car. Number one is my drive, and number two is my meditation, where I'm just a little bit leaned back. And I can take a few minutes before I leave wherever, maybe I've just picked up the groceries and put them in the back. Hey, honey, I'm on the way home. You've got 5 minutes there. There's a lot of play there with traffic and who knows, take it for yourself. Pull into the garage, and before you get involved in, even if you live alone, you're going to get involved with the trash and and all your routine habits. Make a new habit of taking a few minutes. And once you establish the habit, whether that be with a guided meditation or, some sort of insight timer, there's all kinds of free resources out there. And even Vipassana meditation, which is not something I subscribe to, but there are literally free 10-day Vipassana retreats all over the country and the world.
That's awesome.
There's a donation, but you do not, you can donate, but you do not have to contribute. So there's a lot of these things that Buddhist and Tibetan temples and yoga studios, they might cost a little bit of money, but Insight Timer, YouTube, Spotify has meditations. Really, there's kind of no excuse.
Yeah, it's true. It's so true. It's so true. I'm a huge fan of the Insight Timer. That's always the resource I give my clients. So I love that one. Yes. But you're right, though. There's so many free resources. You can't escape any of those.
So just let go of expectation, start, and then keep trying to find the one that resonates for you. I actually meditate with some people who don't do the kind of meditation that I do. We do different kinds, but but you can sit there and have a really beautiful experience. And when you have more people together meditating at the same time, I think it just makes it. I mean, I meditate with my wife every morning.
Yeah.
Even if she has to get up at 4, I will get up with her, sit up, do my meditation, go back.
That is commitment.
I don't have to get up until
later. Commitment. That's amazing,
it's a really
though.
special time.
Yes, for sure. Well, and it really is true. And I say my husband and I do it when we can, like we can do it, together. Both of us, we'll do our own practice, whatever, if we can't. But it really is such a different experience when you do it with whether it's one person or multiple people. And we went to a Dr. Joe Dispenza workshop right before COVID. And that was probably one of the most I don't even know the word for that experience, but being in a room of, hundreds of people doing this meditation, it was insane. But to be able to, it really is a different experience being able to do it together. So there's something you can do with, your partner, your spouse, whatever. It's something easy you can do that even just like you're saying, it doesn't have to be for a long time, but it really is something special you can do together. I love that tip. I love that.
Yeah, something that's really powerful, actually, because I read extensively, that you can do with your partner, and this would be an open eye meditation, is to actually synchronize your breath, especially in order to, your heartbeats. It's been proven that people doing yoga or any kind of exercise in a room together, especially yoga, because you tend to inhale and exhale at the same time, according to the postures, their heartbeats will synchronize.
I love it.
And so you can do that with your partner. And there's an exercise that we do sometimes where, person A is the one who's watching and person B is the one who's breathing. And so person A will watch person B's breathing and try to synchronize their breath toward it. And then you switch. And so it's just that awareness of the other person, connecting with them. And that's like an open eye. And you can close your eyes too and just try to listen to their deep breathing if you can invoke that belly breath.
Yeah.
So there's a lot. I think it's a really beautiful way to connect with your partner.
Absolutely. I love that. That's so cool. I love it. Do you have one more question that I want to ask you before we finish up? But before I do that, can you let everybody know where to find out more about you? And you have a book coming out. So will you tell us about that too?
I do. I'm so excited. September 16th, my book, Look Lush, will be released. It's a collection of original poetry written by yours truly. And it's a testament to my meditation practice. The first section is 21 poems entitled Look. And it is about my healing from that multi-man rape that I experienced 14 years ago. It's not graphic in nature. It's really about the beauty of healing and finding opportunities and obstacles. The second half is 34 poems. It's entitled Lush, which is a double entendre. Of course, lush has a few meanings. It can also, be slang for a heavy drinker. And that is about my rise from the ashes after all of that occurred and just healing myself through COVID, because I was about 86 days sober off of alcohol when quarantine hit. So being out here in Tampa Bay, I spent a lot of time at the beach. So it's about healing myself with meditation and in conjunction with nature, which Deepak Chopra says that if you can't meditate, spend time in nature, because that's really where God is. So Look Lush will be available on Amazon and on barnesandnoble.com on September 16th, 2022. And you can connect with me for free on Instagram. I'm at Sara Webb Says. So that's SaraWebbSays. I put out lots of information. I do yoga minutes as reels, and that has to do with, of course, asana, which is yoga postures, but also about meditation and just being mindful, and lots of free information available there. You can check out my website, SaraWebbSays.com. I am an inspirational speaker available for hire for a couple of shows or private events per month. And I take on 2 clients for, I call it energetic coaching or spiritual activation, because I don't love that word coach, but it is what's out there in the culture. So I see myself as more of an advocate, and I work in conjunction with my clients. And the work that I do does include leading them through guided meditations, which are completely individually tailored. It's a bespoke coaching situation where they're actually having these meditations channeled specifically for them. And then I record it and send it with them so that they can develop their own meditation practice. But it's a lot more than meditation. It really has to do with just, taking a bird's eye view of your life and seeing where you might want to work on some things. And we choose a couple of things to work with over a period of 13 weeks. We meet weekly, and it's a really beautiful and transformative experience. So thank you so much for allowing me to plug all my free.
Of course. It sounds incredible. I mean, yes, that sounds completely amazing. And of course, I'll have all the notes of that in the show notes for y'all to check out. And we'll be on the lookout for her book coming September 17th or 16th. So that will be, I can't wait. I can't wait to read it myself. That sounds amazing. And the fact that I think even more inspiring is that, you basically had all of these downloads through just your healing. And it's incredible. So very inspirational. I love it.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah. I appreciate the opportunity.
Of course.
And really, my mission is just to get the world to meditate, because I firmly believe that if more people would meditate, we would not have the problems that we have in this world. And it doesn't have to be the entire world, but one person getting clear and authentic in and of themselves, that sends out ripples into the world around that person. And of course, if we're promulgating negativity, that also sends out ripples into the world around that person. So no matter what, we're affecting people. It's like what they say about a butterfly in one country can cause a tsunami in another. It's all ripple effects. And so if we can just get quiet with ourselves and access that power that we all have, I think it would change the world dramatically. So
I agree 100%. So I love your mission. I love it. The last question I have to ask you, one that I like to finish off with everybody. What do you think is the most important thing you can do to live with purpose?
I am all about intentional living, or living with purpose. And so in order to live with purpose, we need to take that time between stimulus and response and take time to respond instead of react. Because a lot of times our first reaction may not be the most enlightened one. But if we can have a little bit of time between stimulus and response, then we can actually respond with more level, more balanced, more informed choices. And I believe firmly that meditation really carves out that space in order to be able to respond instead of react.
Love that. Such good advice. Thank you so much, Sara. Thank you for sharing your story and just being so open and vulnerable, sharing everything that you've been through and just the transformation that you've gone through. It's just super inspiring. And I know everybody is going to get so much out of this episode. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Many blessings to you. And I always say, make it a great day, because you're the only one who can.
That's right. I love it. Thank you, Sara. Thanks for listening to Hopeful and Wholesome, y'all. If you found value in this week's episode, please subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave a review to let me know what you thought. I love to know what you find useful in these episodes so I know how I can provide the most value I can to my listeners. And if you have topics that you want to know more about, I'd love to hear those as well. So shoot me a message on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. It's @TheHopePedraza, or visit my website, hopefulandwholesome.com. Thanks, y'all.